This is Mama Unleashed. Knowledge, information, truth and tools for you, so you can become the happiest mother you know. Hello and a very warm welcome to Mama Unleashed, the podcast for women who want the most out of motherhood. I'm your host, Dr. Jennifer Hacker-Pearson. I am so excited to bring you this very first episode of Mama Unleashed. I created this podcast because I want you to thrive in motherhood and I want you to feel truly happy. So I thought, what better way than bringing you information, knowledge, and evidence-based tools you can incorporate into your life to unleash yourself and become the happiest mother you know. And by happy, I mean whatever lights your soul up. You might be thinking, hang on, didn't this used to be the Tough Mothers podcast? Yes, it was. And recently, I gave it a little makeover. Mama Unleashed is bigger, better, and designed purely for you. And I'm so excited to bring it to you regularly from today. In fact, I'm so excited I want to celebrate with you, which is why I would like you to win one of the 3 $50 Amazon gift cards I'm giving away. All you need to do is rate, review, and follow Mama Unleashed on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube at Dr. Jen Hacker-Pearson. Then send me a screenshot of your follow, rating, and review to podcast@drjen.com.au and you're in the draw. It's so simple. T's and C's are below and at drjen.com.au/podcast. But now, on to the first show with my very first guest on Mama Unleashed, the amazing Debra Summons. Deb is a powerhouse mum of 3, a savvy entrepreneur and business owner, and one of the genuinely most happy and fulfilled mothers I've ever met, which is why I asked her onto the show. But becoming a mother wasn't a smooth transition for Deb. After her 3rd baby in particular, she found herself feeling lost, vulnerable, worthless, and unfulfilled. On the show today, she tells us how she used the suffering of her matrescence journey as a gift to find herself within motherhood and truly thrive. If you've never heard of matrescence before, it is the developmental transformation a woman goes through when she becomes a mother. And if you've never heard of matrescence before, you really need to listen to this episode so you too can find the gift within the suffering. Hi, Deb. Thank you so much for being on Mama Unleashed today. I'm so grateful for your time and for what you're going to share with us about your life, because you are a very vulnerable and open woman and you like to talk about your experience of motherhood because you know that it's going to help other people. And we're just going to dive straight in. Let's talk about how it started for you, that you knew the new frontier was coming.
Well, thanks for having me. I guess I'm kind of a bit of a nobody. I'm just like someone out there doing my motherhood thing and all the rest of it. So to have the opportunity to come onto something like this and actually take the time out to reflect on my journey, which was life-changing for me, is like a real privilege. And it's almost been a little therapeutic. And I know that a lot of your audience are actually in the thick of it. So I feel that so deeply. And even though I can tell you now, it took me a while to respond to your text message because I was a little bit like, oh, what do I have to offer here? I'm just a Joe average doing my mum thing, maybe not that well. And then I thought, when I was in the thick of it, if someone had said, this is going to pass, we'll get through this, you've got a new frontier ahead, it's all coming, just hang in there, I would have loved to have heard that, because I was deep in a world that I was like, shit, where is this going? So
yeah.
You mentioned at the start about a new frontier, and I guess that's what I underestimated. I underestimated that motherhood was going to be this new frontier. I actually just thought it would be like, oh, we'll just produce a little beautiful thing, they'll slot into our life and on we go and we'll create a family.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that. I don't know why. I think that's because on the surface, that's always how it looks.
I think also that's kind of what we're led to believe, that, you know, and that we're kind of like the same woman, but now with a baby.
Yes, exactly. And it's like a rite of passage. This is like totally normal. Like, this is what we've always wanted, right? Well, really? Like, does anyone actually go, is that what we want? I'm not even sure. So I guess for me, and my from where I started was, I always wanted to have a family, but I didn't have this burning desire to be a mother and hold a baby. So the whole concept of reproducing and having a baby was something that I had to really think about and plan. My life was amazing. I was madly in love with my husband. We were traveling. We had professional careers developing. We lived in Melbourne. It was a great life. And so we got to the stage where we were like, okay, well, we want a family. But obviously for me, I had to fall pregnant, do all of that. So I was like, oh, okay, like just another thing. I'm really, you know, a high achiever, whatever I call myself. I can do this. And again, I underestimated that new frontier, and I began to feel that shift straight away when we started planning. And then it started by changing our sex life. So all of a sudden, the spontaneity left, and we were having sex to reproduce a human. And that whole thing really shook me. So that was the start of it, like with the tips and the this and the that. And I was like, oh my God.
And people definitely don't talk. Like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we don't talk about when it comes to motherhood and becoming mothers, but that is something that people definitely don't talk about. Maybe if, you know, you're doing IVF or something where it's a little bit more open to talk about that, it's a clinical thing. But often in families, it does take the passion, I suppose, in a sense, out of it, because we do kind of, it becomes a routine thing, a scheduled thing.
A part of the
a plan.
Like you're taking your folate and you're like doing this and you're trying to drink less and eat less and whatever else you're doing. And then all of a sudden you have to have sex at a specific time of the month, and you have to do it every day for 5 days and then not at all and whatever else. And there's advice coming at you from everywhere. So I found that straight away. I was like, oh, okay, this thing is different. I felt it different straight away. So anyway, we were very blessed and very fortunate that we fell pregnant straight away. My first pregnancy, I miscarried. I'd handled that emotionally really well. I'm not sure why. I just kind of did. And then, so then we went back to the sex again, and then I fell pregnant, and we got through to about 8 weeks, and I just had the worst morning sickness.
Oh,
like terrible, like couldn't get out of bed, couldn't go to work. And I loved my job. I loved training. I loved socializing. I loved all of that. And I had the worst morning sickness, and I was in bed staring at the roof, just having those disgusting waves of nausea. And anyone out there that has morning sickness knows it's indescribable what it can do. And then I really went, okay, this is different. This is the start of a new frontier, and I keep saying that word because it really is, that is going to change my world for good. And I felt vulnerable. I felt terrified. I felt, what is on the other side? Is my marriage going to be okay? Like, am I going to be okay? Is my career going to be okay? I studied at university. I did so much. My career was so much a part of my identity. So I was very concerned about all of it. And that was the beginning of, okay, this is different.
And you know, that's matrescence. So you know that I've spoken to you about the developmental shift, and
I believe it's got a name.
Well, imagine if someone told you this is really normal, because you are transitioning into a different stage of your life. It's like, you know, the adolescence. You're becoming from girl to woman, and now woman to mother. Not that you're any less of a woman, but I don't like the term maiden, so I don't use it. But from woman to mother, and if somebody had said to you, now listen, you're going to go through a physical, psychological, emotional, social, and spiritual change, how much more would you have embraced the period, and how much more would you have been how much less would you have been feeling like there's something wrong?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I think the prehab work leading into birth, I think, could help with some of the postnatal depression that we experience. If we know straight up post baby, things are going to be crazy. Some of it we can put down to hormones. Some of it we can just put down to just adjustment. Some of it we can put down to at no other stage in your life. And men don't experience this switch like we do, where you literally switch and you're on another side after you give birth, and it just feels so different and so terrifying. I think if that began when you fall pregnant, or you're trying to get pregnant, you were aware that a change was coming. and we were less focused on the birth and the selection of the bassinet and the pram, I think we would all come out of the other side a little bit better.
You are, that's like music to my ears. This is exactly what I'm trying to accomplish with my work, you know. And I think matrescence luckily is becoming a little bit more spoken about. Women are starting to hear the word, but what we don't talk about is that it does, or it can for a lot of women, start when we start trying for a baby. That's when the shift can start.
Oh, it definitely started for me. I was like terrified from the whole
Yeah.
get-go. And then I had no problems with falling pregnant or anything. So I can't imagine anyone that had complications through that. That would definitely start with intensity prior to having any birthing experience for
Yeah.
sure.
And then
Yeah.
we sort of need to manage that ourselves. And nobody talks to you about it. You don't talk to your friends about it. Even your mother doesn't talk to you about it. You know, elder people in your family don't talk to you about it, and you just think there's something wrong with me. And
Oh,
then you're told to focus all this energy and time on, you know, antenatal classes and in case of cesarean and blah 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 blah. And really, there's this huge thing going on already. Huge.
and the birth plan, I mean, oh my goodness, that's like 27 seconds in a kid's life, or in your life as a mother. And you kind of, yeah, did I have that plan? What was that plan again? Like, you know,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's hard to, in hindsight, you can see all of these things, you know, you can see all of this happening. But if I had have known that that was a concept, I mean, I keep going to say mastitis, not that word, not because that was more conditioned in my head at that stage than this psychological, emotional concept, neurotic, you know, concept that you, medical concept that you talk of. So for me, that all started changing, and how I dealt with the fear of what was coming and the shift that you talk of was I began to try and hang on to my life. Like I was hanging on for dear life to hang on to that identity, what I did. And so then, you know, I tried to maintain my sex life. I tried to maintain like my social life. I was training really hard. Once the morning sickness settled, I was like, okay, right. Okay, good. I'm back on now. I'm going to go back to my life. I was traveling to Sydney for work. I was like, I can do this. I'm a superwoman. But I was very, very vulnerable. And what I was trying to do was to maintain my normal, not embrace the change and not go, okay, I'm going to sit through this. I'm going to be with these changes because I know it's going to be okay. I fought it and I was hanging on for dear life.
But you probably didn't even know there was a change coming. Do you know
No,
what I mean? Like you
no.
felt different, but you didn't know whether it was a permanent thing. It could have just been hormones from pregnancy. You don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so I can totally identify with that holding on. Mine was after I had my third baby in particular. But I can understand it's like you are white knuckling onto that person that you were before
yeah.
because it's terrifying to let go and see who's she going to become. Now I've
Yeah.
skipped ahead, so keep going. Keep telling me your story.
So I think there's and at the time in our friendship group, we were the first people really going through with babies. There was a couple of other friends that had had babies, but really we were on the front of the wave of it all because you know you tend to be in the middle, the back, or whatever. We were on the front, so I didn't have much to talk to, many people to talk to. I was kind of out there on my own doing it. I was maintaining it all with my career and everything, and then I felt that when I just wanted to, and I remember negotiating with my employer at the time that no, I'm going to come straight back. What can I do? How can I maintain this? I'll be fine. I'll just squeeze the baby out and we'll be back. No problem. So I went through my pregnancy. It was actually fine. Like I did do a very good job of maintaining everything. And I think I worked right up until 3 days before I had the baby. And then I was at home and I went into labor. I was overdue. Like I went right over, didn't want to be induced, and then went into labor and gave birth. And my birth, I think my birth was, in hindsight, a gift, but in reality, it was traumatizing. Like everyone's got their own birth stories of things that went right and went wrong. But I guess in summary, I felt like I was ripped apart physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, on every single level. I felt like there was a 12-hour transition from when I went in to when I gave birth that was otherworldly. And I
Yeah.
can only say it's abnormal. I know it's natural. Women all over the world do it in caves, but it's just not normal.
Yeah.
Like, we're not conditioned in our modern life to experience those things daily. You know, we're just not. So I found that so difficult. And I remember like being stitched up, and they put him on my chest, and I breastfed him. He was beautiful and big and healthy and perfect, nothing wrong there. Just going, oh my God, like in shock. What just happened to me? What is this? And I suddenly went, oh my God, I'm completely terrified, because now I know, and it makes me choke up a bit, the world can really hurt me. I'm
Wow.
so vulnerable. I was raised to be incredibly independent, financially, emotionally, all of those things. And I just had this beautiful bundle on my chest. And I just went, oh, this is all I wanted a family. I've got a family, but now the world can really hurt me, because if anything happens to this, I'm done. Like, I just don't know how I'd recover from that. So I didn't have those overwhelming hormones, feelings of joy and love and whatever else. I felt incredibly vulnerable. And I know, talking to my friends, I think having children, a lot of them, they felt a greater sense of security, that there was something more than them that they needed, that needed them, that they felt more secure in their relationships, where they were in life. I felt more vulnerable than ever before. So I suddenly felt I was out there on my own with something that I was forever responsible for, to make right, to care for, to provide for. And was my partner going to be okay with that? What if he left me? And my marriage was amazing, and we're still married today, and it's beautiful, and we're in love. But I just had these irrational thoughts like coming through my head. And I was just like, is this normal? Oh my God, what is happening here? And I guess it's that, is it protective? I don't know. I just felt so vulnerable. And I just felt vulnerable from the world, and something I'd never felt before. And I think lack of control as well. So all those things just took me to a new phase where I was just like, I don't know what's ahead here. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And do you feel like what you were experiencing when you were pregnant, did it sort of like snowball into this? Is that
Yeah.
just, was it like the same sort of thing, but just bigger feelings when your son was born?
Yes, it exploded. It
Yeah,
was
right.
like there was a little simmering thing here. When I was sick and I was incapacitated, it was like a simmering feeling. And then I came good at around 16 weeks, I think, the morning sickness passed. And then I went back to my normal life with this beautiful belly, and I was like living the life. And I'm like, oh, this is okay. That was just something that happened. And then when I gave birth, it was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
I feel so vulnerable. I had to be stitched up. I couldn't sit down for a week. I mean, we've all got those stories of things that happened. Thankfully, there was no health issues with my baby. He fed really well. I had all that under control. My husband and partner my husband is amazing. So I could not have been in a better situation, really. But I felt like so vulnerable, so vulnerable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that and telling us intimately how you felt, because I think it's so important that, you know, even on the surface, you had everything. You had everything you could possibly need to be happy and to feel comfortable and to enjoy the moment, and yet you still didn't.
yeah.
I'm not sorry, shouldn't say that. I don't mean you didn't enjoy the moment, but you still had this vulnerability.
No, I didn't enjoy the moment. I was
Oh,
like,
you
what
didn't.
is this thing that this is beautiful? And what is all this? I don't feel all of this. Like, if I never went through this again in my life, I'd be a very, very happy person. I was just like, this is nuts. How do people do this? This is just like unbelievable. Unbelievable. I was just like, this is just not okay. Like, I didn't deal with the whole situation that well at all, actually. But I mean, women do it, and we get through it, and you forget, and all the rest of it, as we know.
So how long did that last after your son was born? Were you sort of, or what did you do? Did you sort of just fake it till you make it, kind of like, what did you do? Because if you felt this vulnerability for the first time, or, you know, in probably,
I faked it until I made it, basically.
yeah,
And I
right.
just became, so I was in hospital, fine, no problem. I couldn't sit down for ages. Every time I weed, it was awful. I just thought, my God, I'm never having sex again. Like, this is just terrible. And in fact, I did end up with fourth degree prolapse, everything nearly fell out. It was not a great scenario in the end. But at the time, I wasn't aware of that. So the physical side of what I went through was real, even though they were going, this is just a normal part of birth. But like it was, I had to have a 6-hour operation later on down the track to fix everything from that initial birthing experience. So what I felt was real. So how did I get through it? The 5 days after I was in hospital for 5 days, which was quite normal where I was at. And they just made sure my feeding was everything. I went home. I was really well supported by my partner, but I just had this desire again to go, okay, that's a really abnormal experience. I want to go back to what I know and what I'm really good at. And that is leading my professional life and doing it all and doing my exercise and all of that. So I was hanging so tightly onto that, that I didn't allow myself to actually feel anything. I didn't allow myself to go, why aren't I feeling this overwhelming love? Why aren't I feeling just a pure joy at what we've just created in the next journey of our life? I was like, just take me back there, because that's where I feel me and that's where I feel amazing. Whereas I should have just, if I knew there was a transition coming, I think I would have been more at peace and just accepting.
I was just going to ask you that. If somebody had said to you, this is what can happen, and obviously it happens in varying degrees to different women and manifests differently for every woman as well. And it can manifest, you might know this as well, for every child that you have, it can be different again. If someone had said to you, this is what's going to happen, you think that you would have just gone, okay, I'm going to go with it a little bit more.
Yes. Oh, I definitely would have gone with it for sure. Going like, in the technical birthing classes, they go, you might have a Caesar and you might have this. And so when they said you need a forceps delivery, I was like, okay, that was something they talked about.
Yeah.
So I was ready for that. I was aware of that. Whereas I was not aware of the concept of any sort of spiritual, emotional, psychological shift that occurs. I didn't even know that was a thing. I knew about postnatal depression, but again, I refused to accept that I had that. I did get a little bit of that. That was when my third child came, but after my first, there was no postnatal depression per se. I could get out of bed, I could function, but I was just very hell bent on going back to what I knew.
We have very similar stories, actually. And I wonder, and I would love to research this a little bit more about if women knew about matrescence, would it lower her risk of getting postnatal depression? Is the postnatal depression, I've actually done another podcast episode on it, postnatal depression versus matrescence, which one is it? And if we knew about matrescence, and if healthcare workers, especially GPs, knew about matrescence, would they be so quick to diagnose postnatal depression, or could we give women more care to support her through this matrescence journey?
I think with the matrescence, it needs to start with the fertility, like the whole fertility conversation or the whole family planning conversation. These are the things that you are going to be a part of this journey for you. And one of them is this. Just needs to be a concept out there that you can, when you're getting your folate, you're understanding about matrescence. That's how I see, because folate, you take your folate, you still do that at the start when you're planning, right? So it could almost be a part of that, because I absolutely believe there's some people that are destined for postnatal depression, no matter how much knowledge you have or whatever, like it's a thing, right? But for me, I believe that knowledge is power. And if I had have had more knowledge, I would have been able to get through that a bit better. And I think I experienced it with my third child, because I had 3 under 3 as well, because I was so determined to get through this phase that was very uncomfortable for me. I just hammered out the kids and just thought, I just want to get this over. So by the time I had my third, I was absolutely exhausted and I fell out of everything that I was doing, and I was just in deep in the whole kid world. And that's when I went, I'm worth nothing but this. And that's when it all started happening. But if I had have known that that's part of the transition, I think I would have had a little bit more perspective and been better at that, being able to better handle those emotions at the end of the third child, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think exhaustion plays a big part in it as well, not knowing, being exhausted. I think you went another country as well, so
We hadn't had, we weren't at another country then. That actually made my life easier.
oh,
But
okay.
when I had my third child, it was 18 months later, we headed overseas,
Oh, okay.
which was actually made things a bit better because we had a greater network of support.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah.
That
But
makes
yeah, I do wonder because mine was after my third baby, so I had mine in 3.5 years, not quite three. And same sort of thing, and I was absolutely exhausted, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was, like I said, I was white knuckling, holding on to this
yeah,
person. Somehow with my boys, I managed to do it. I don't know how. Just I guess I led with my head rather than with my heart, and I just kept going and
yeah, you keep going.
powering through just
Yeah.
keep it normal. And then when my daughter came along, it was like it just I had no choice. It just knocked me over. And so that's when I became interested in what I'm doing now because I'm like, hang on, what's going on here? And then when I came across the concept of matrescence, I cried because I was like, that's it. That is it. That is exactly what happened. That is
Yeah.
exactly what happened to me.
And I think for me, one of the things that I also found very difficult, and it was a little bit after I had my third child. So I did all the postnatal depression tests and they went, look, you're a bit borderline. And I think the question that they asked me was, my GP said, so I went to a maternal health nurse appointment with my newborn. I had the two little ones there. And my son was going crazy and I just burst into tears, couldn't handle it. And so then they called the GP. My husband took me to the GP. They said, okay, what's going on here? Long story short, he said to me, so tell me when you feel good. I said, I only feel good at about 6:30 p.m. when all the kids are in bed and I'm drinking wine. That's the only time I feel good during the day. And he was like, oh, okay, red flag. We could have a problem here. And then I went on like I had some therapy, but it wasn't deep enough that I couldn't work through it quickly. So I came out the other end really well. But then after I got through the first year and I started to come up for air, I was a little bit like, oh my goodness, because by that stage I'd given up work, paid work, and I was deeply entrenched in the unpaid work. And I think it's a really important distinction we need to talk about as mothers. There's
Yes.
paid work and unpaid work. It's all work, all needs to be done, and how we divide it up.
Yep.
So I became very entrenched in domestic unpaid work, and it was very uncomfortable for me. It was very unfulfilling. I was just really, is the park and supporting my husband's career and what we're doing for dinner, is that really where it's at? And again, I couldn't see past that this was just a moment in time. It was a moment in time. It's not like this forever. I
No.
just couldn't get past the day.
But
And
you don't because I think the days are so long. And so it just seems to drag on forever, you know,
forever,
forever. And even
forever.
I think women who are happy to do that. I mean, there are women out there who are happy and enjoy doing the day-to-day, just the mothering. I think even for those, it feels like it's never ending.
Never ending. And 3 o'clock, you're like, shit, I've still got like, let's say your bedtime's 7. I've still got a really long time and a
Yeah.
lot of work to get through before then. And so I just really felt like I lost my identity. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so unfulfilled. I didn't feel guilt. I felt guilty because I had the ultimate privilege where I was able to go to my husband, look, I went back to work with my first after 6 weeks. I did a really good job of stringing it together for probably a year or so before I fell pregnant with my second. And again, I had the worst morning sickness, couldn't tend to my 1-year-old, couldn't turn up for work. So I just ended up having to leave work. I just couldn't get it together. And I felt tortured by the privilege that I had, that I could exit paid work and stay at home with my family and raise them. So it was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because we could still have a wonderful life, but at the same time, it was a curse because when you have choice, that's generally where conflict exists. So
Yeah.
I didn't have to go to work. I didn't have to find a way to make all that come together and move on. I chose I called it opt out at the time, opt out of that side of my life. And I remember telling my girlfriends I'm retiring. That's how I felt. I felt it was final. I felt it's all just too hard with these kids and everything else. So I opted out. And I just, for about 6 months, I felt a great sense of relief, had the second baby. And then I was just like, okay, I just need to get the show on the road, have the third baby. And then I just really began to spiral and go, oh my God, this is all that I'm doing now. This is all that I'm about. And there was things that I noticed change. Like I had no relationships with men outside of my husband, and like, you know, the family barbecues or the 1-year-old birthday party, and the mum and the father would know me as the kid's mother. I had no independent relationships with men, which I think is really important for your intellectual growth, your emotional growth, like on a professional level or anything. And I felt like in a social setting, conversations I was having with men were totally different. They'd stopped talking about business and concepts I was very, very aware of, very educated in. And we'd end up talking about, so tell me about Johnny's start at Socceroos or whatever. And I was like, this is just, nothing is satisfying now. Nothing is where I thought it would be. I thought I'd be joyful at home making muffins, and I'm just wallowing. I felt like I just was getting through each day at a time. And it wasn't, I went through that for quite a while because the kids were young and the day-to-day demands just drag you along. They take you along. You're just like, we'll just get through it. It'll get easier. It'll get easier. It'll get easier. Your husband, you're at a stage in your life when usually you have financial commitments to meet, and your kids are growing. And so you're just in that zone where it's all work. And I think we just kept going, but I was really dissatisfied. But I felt that I'd just figure it out. And the longer I was out of my career, the more confidence I lost, the more worthless I felt. I really didn't know what I was good at. I didn't actually think I was particularly good at mothering. I didn't know if my kids were going to work out because I didn't really love what I was doing at home. So I felt like I was just this one big, massive, wasted mess. And I felt selfish because I wanted to be doing something that I wasn't doing at the time. So
I love that. And that I think a lot of women can relate to that. I wanted to be doing something that I wasn't doing.
Yeah. And it was a choice. It was a choice to be there home with my 3 kids, making sure when they were sick, they weren't at daycare. My kids never went to daycare. Right. You know, they were always close to me, and we made the decision that one parent would always do more parenting than paid work. We made a decision from the birth that would be the case. So this was my time to do that. So I took the responsibility on, but I hate saying this, but it wasn't a joyful experience. It was just something I kind of felt I got through.
And I wonder why we feel guilty about saying that, because it's not, well, I don't think it's anything against our children when we say I didn't enjoy that job, that unpaid job at the time, because it's a relentless thing to do, and it's, you know, through the night all day long. And I think we should be allowed to say, I'm not enjoying this very much right now. Doesn't mean I don't love my kids. I love my kids, and I love being with my kids, and I love watching them grow and everything. But right now, I'm not enjoying this. And for some reason in society, we're not allowed to say that.
No, we're not. And the challenge and also I think an important point here is you are in life, whether you've got babies or not, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And at the time, I was spending a lot of time with mothers groups, and I think if I look back, the 5 people that I was really immersed with were people that were so joyfully connected to child rearing and had absolutely no thought of doing anything else except being present in this bliss. And it brought them so much fulfillment and joy. So I felt incredibly isolated and almost abnormal. So
well, yeah. Why is that not me? Why hasn't that happened to me? Why is this, you know, motherhood has brought this out in them, and why not me?
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself
like,
that.
oh my God, is there something wrong with me? And I go back to, I had these feelings of guilt around, well, I set myself this expectation because I said from the get-go that I didn't want to have I wanted a family, but I didn't want to have babies. But rather than going, this is a normal feeling, because that's how I've always felt about this whole thing. This is just something we're going to nurture and get through and embrace it for all that it is. Because like you say, it's a tough job and it's thankless. No newborn is going, Mum, thank you for coming all night last night. I had a shit of a night. No newborn is saying that. Whereas when you go to a paid job, if you work through the night on a presentation and it's amazing and you deliver it, your boss or those people, are the recipients of that, are going, thank God for that piece of work. It's amazing. So
and I think we should normalize that, though, that women do have different experiences of it, you know?
Totally. Everyone is different how you experience it. And we need to be able to, I remember saying to a mum once, I find this whole park scene so boring. I find it so boring. I come here all the time. It's like triggering. I just find it so boring. And I found that concept really challenging to say. But then what I did was I actually started actively seeking out women that had passed through the phase that I was in, that were running businesses, that had gone back to paid work, that that taught me the concept that children are a part of my life, not the only part. And as soon as I gave myself license to live with that philosophy, my world honestly changed. Because we don't talk about that, do we? We talk about, you know, little Johnny having everything they need, and like, is the baby sick? What do you need? And everything, especially in the early days, it's a lot about servicing the baby. So once I really went, okay, that's really resonated with me. I need to shut out the noise and the fear of judgment and just go, my kids are a joyful part of my life, but not the only part.
And I often talk about that as well. It's like motherhood should only be a hat that you wear.
Yes.
And a big one. It's a big hat. Let's be honest. But there is a woman underneath that hat, and that woman needs to wear her exercise hat or her career hat or her relationship hat or whatever it is that makes you happy. Because if you put it all into motherhood, I mean, I have some clients who are grandmothers, and older women whose children have left the home. And these are obviously of a different generation when it was much more intense anyway, because women were encouraged to leave their jobs and just throw it all in to have children. And then the children are gone, and now they're really lost. Now they're, you know, in their 60s or so, and they're like, well, I don't have a career left. My children don't need me anymore. They've got their own families. Some have a partner, some don't. But it's a huge another shift, and it's part of matrescence as well. It's all part of matrescence. It's all this transitioning through life, and so I think one of my big things when I work with mothers is that motherhood is just a hat for you as the woman, and you as the woman need to thrive in motherhood, in your relationship, in your career, in your whatever it is that you need.
Absolutely, totally. And going back to when I started with my morning sickness and I felt incredibly vulnerable. Having the babies, I felt incredibly vulnerable. Actually falling out of my career, I actually even use those words often. I fell out of my career because I didn't choose to leave. I felt like I was kicked out because of the pressures around me. And that vulnerability I felt a freedom and an empowerment to address that vulnerability when I told myself that children are my children are a really joyful, loving part of my life, but not the only part. So
what happened then?
Yeah, so that was really empowering. So then when I went through that journey, I was like, okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, again, remember I had the privilege of not having to go back to paid work. I began thinking, I began reading and talking to a lot of women about what they were doing and starting businesses and working and doing bits and pieces. And I was like, okay, now I've got the opportunity, and this is the gift in all of this, that you're back to ground zero. Because I'd already let go of my past life that I was hanging on to. So now I gave myself the license and like having your partner support and dialogue in this is so important. And my husband is amazing at this. He literally said to me, you need to go away and design a life that you want, and then we need to start living it.
Oh my God. That's so awesome.
I think he even said, I hope it includes us. No. He did, because we in all of this, really briefly, we moved overseas and we did 4.5 years in Asia, which was a really good experience for us. And I grew a lot through that. The kids grew up. It was really exciting. So what that did, I couldn't work. I couldn't do paid work. I wasn't allowed to as a part, because we were in a Muslim country and women can't work. So what it actually did was it taught me about, it allowed me to suppress those feelings that at the moment I cannot do anything except be here. So even though I was fighting them, it was like situationally, I'm here to support my husband. This is what I'm doing. So I do remember saying, okay, it's time to go home. Let's go home. Well, he said, I want to go home. And I said, yep, let's go home and I'll work it out. So we got home. And then it was really then that he said, I came home, I didn't return back well. You go through culture shock. It's a whole different thing. We moved to Byron Bay. We'd been living in a city somewhere overseas. I come from Melbourne, so I felt quite displaced. So I was really upset, not coping with things, and it was affecting the children. And he kind of said to me, right, you need to redesign this life. And that's when I really started living the children are a part of my life, not the only part. I started putting them second, making conscious decisions to explore, to put myself first, to explore them, knowing that if I did that, my children will benefit. They were kind of old enough then to like pack lunches and do a few things in bits and pieces. So I had a bit more freedom. And then I just started exploring entrepreneurial pursuits. I retrained as a personal trainer. I started a small little fitness gym just for other mothers to come and train. And we talked about motherhood and where we're at. And that was really like quite empowering for me as well. I started looking at different things in property and just exploring my passions.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I had this burning question of, what is all this? Why am I doing all of this? And so I really had to get to what was I going to do? Because I had the privilege of redefining my future now, because I'd accepted I'd been through a transition. I'd let go of the past. So I started to see the motherhood transition as a gift, as a privilege, not as an imposition. And that's when that's when I just decided to be really courageous and say yes to everything. And if it inconvenienced my children, if they had to miss out on something, if their basic needs were met, we were going to be all okay. We're living in Australia. We'd seen poverty overseas. These kids have nothing to worry about. So we're going to be fine. So I started putting myself first. And I reckon I was probably a selfish bitch for a solid 18 months. And I just really focused on things that filled my cup, pursuing my passions, understanding what my purpose was and how that would all look. And I started connecting with people, building my network and my top 5 of people that shared similar mindsets, similar philosophies, similar focuses myself. And then it all kind of came together. I started a property business with a really beautiful, joyful girl that I met through this process. And then I started a fitness company that is now global. 30% of our market is overseas. And then I've gone on to support other women in situations where they've come out of this motherhood journey and not known where to go and felt incredibly financially vulnerable. So I found that serving others so I guess, how can I explain this? So I found the greatest opportunities and most fulfilling part came from taking what I knew in my past life, all the skills, all the knowledge, all the technical, professional things, and bringing it forward and finding women that were out the other side like me, not knowing where to go, and joining forces with them. We were able to create really powerful things. Wow. And so now I've been able to create a life where I run the philosophy of my children are a part of my life, not the only part. And we're running a whole bunch of really great businesses with women that share similar stories to me, and we feel absolutely unstoppable.
Wow.
So I feel now I'm at the stage of my life where I could not be happier in terms of where I'm at, what we're doing, how the kids are functioning. And it's now in opportunities like this that I look back on my motherhood journey and go, oh my God, that was a gift. Thank God I embraced it. Thank God. And I know we've spoken before, Jen, about how the brain is merely malleable after that whole process and how it's time to be courageous and time to, use that thinking and that spiritual growth for something good. And I really am so grateful that I took advantage of that. And I had a beautiful network around me that allowed me to explore all of that. So it's ended well.
That's fantastic.
And well, it hasn't ended, but it continues to evolve, and it's a fascinating thing. And now I've got teenagers, and I'm in a whole nother world of pain.
But I think it's sort of, the typical transformation story, isn't it? You start out, it's like, when a butterfly, the butterfly in the cocoon goes through this like radical, crazy, it like eats itself up. It's like this full digestion of itself kind of thing. And then it emerges out this butterfly. So it's sort of like you're the pre-mum you, then you enter motherhood. And I know for some women it's not quite as intense as I was similar to you.
It's not torturous like it was for me.
Not torturous, but if there is a transition for everybody. And so whether they voice it in a different way, use different language, the transition is there. And I think the butterfly analogy is beautiful because it's so perfect that you have this caterpillar, then you go into this cocoon and you're not really sure what's going on. You're kind of like eating yourself up a little bit and nothing kind of makes sense. Who am I? What's going on? And then you have this major traumatic, whichever way you want to look at it, whether it's a huge trauma for you or not or whatever, but it's traumatic in itself, transformation, and you come out the other end. And I think using this transformation like you have, where you've just gone, this is because you could have easily done nothing. You could have easily gone, oh well, this is the cards I was dealt, and it's just the way it's going to be because society expects me to be a stay-at-home mum, and we're lucky enough that I don't have to work, and the children need me, and I will just sacrifice myself now as a vessel for my children. You could have very easily done that.
Very easily.
But you didn't. And so you've emerged this beautiful butterfly.
And there was a couple of, if I really think about it, there was a couple of pearls of wisdom I got along the way. And you've got to find those people that are living the life you want to lead, right? And learn from them. They won't be perfect, but there'll be things in there. And so one was the motherhood is a part of your life, not the only part. That was a really, really good one. And the other one was I felt a lot of guilt. I think I've shared this along the way about the privilege of not having to be at home with my children. And I felt a lot of guilt around that too, because I didn't really want to be just doing that. So I felt a lot of guilt. And one of the mums that had gone back to paid work, similar to me, didn't have to, she said, you know what, you need to use this privilege as an opportunity. Don't see it as an imposition. Don't be conflicted by it. It's an opportunity. Use it wisely. Otherwise, it's a wasted opportunity. And that kind of woke me up into going, okay, what do I want my life to look? Because if I'm the best version of me, my kids are better.
100%. 100%. It's like if your cup is not full, how can you pour into your children? It makes so much sense. Yet we expect women to just give all of themselves and still give everything to their children.
Yes.
It doesn't work that way. That's such a good piece of advice, I think, as well.
Yeah, those two things were things that I constantly told myself. And I think where I am now and the things that we've created with my partners and in business are beyond anything in my wildest dreams. Like, I can't even tell you, like, I would never have thought this, to the point that I go back to my parenting, collective, my husband and I, our collective parenting philosophy, which was one of us was to do more parenting and less paid work. So we got to the point where it was like, okay, hun, like, we got to decide here. And he just went, it's my time now. So he stepped out of an incredibly rewarding, joyful career that he had. He was in corporate doing really well, CEO of a very successful entrepreneurial business. He stepped out of that to become more at home with the children, more focused, to give me my time to go forward.
Wow.
And to create this. And then that just started expediting things more and more. So it takes more than just you to get through the modern family. And I refer to the modern family often because it's a myriad of different things. And for us, the modern family looked like we needed one person, parents, steering the values and the morals in our family, not doing everything for the kids, but just there, just it all intact. And one person obviously providing the income and pursuing more of a professional perspective. I mean, my kids are older now, so my husband's been able to do some smaller entrepreneurial things, but he really is home supporting me to make sure the sacrifice that I made in my early on in my career, he can now give me the support as we go into the next phase of our life. So I'm very, again, that comes back to make sure you use your privilege as an opportunity. And he's a privilege that I have in my life. So I wanted to make sure that was supporting the opportunities that I wanted to pursue. So I feel really grateful for that. So yeah, there's a lot in it, but I think if I was to look back, what I would have told myself is...
How did you know I was going to ask you that?
I think because that's what it's all about. What is the lesson here? The lesson here is, I say this too, because I run a business where I employ lots of young women that are entering into motherhood, that are leaving careers or putting careers on hold. And I'm like, just be patient. Know that it'll work out, and know that you can't allow it not to. But take the pressure off yourself and just be in the moment, because these moments don't come back. You just have to be there.
And if I can add something to that, to also use, like you said, the gift of becoming a mother. Let it change you to become the person that you're going to be, that's going to have this, life after your children, because there is so much change that happens, and it is a gift. Like you were saying, it's, spiritual and psychological and emotional, and it's just like this kind of a gift.
It's a total gift, but you don't realize it until after the fact, because it is quite like, it was traumatic. And that's a little like, I guess, emotional language, but that's how I felt. But I think that, just being patient and moving through that process. And the other part, that just on the mother guilt thing, because that's a thing, right? A lot of people speak about that. I felt intense mother guilt when I was a full-time mother. I was at everything, the running race, the cupcake day, the everything. I was at everything. And I felt intense guilt because I found the whole thing so boring. Now I've got the balance right, and I found my philosophies, and I understood what I needed to be doing in terms of a mother and how I needed to balance it all. When I turn up for the cupcake day or the running race or whatever it is, I'm there joyful because I've got the balance right. And now I lead my parenting with very little guilt. And that's freedom. That is freedom when you find that balance. So there's no manual. It's a very personal thing, but you have to be really just intuitively driven and shut out the noise and find your top 5 or even your top 3 people that are going to guide you through this, not the people you think. Not what you think you should be doing, what you know you should be doing. Find those people, and then the rest takes care of itself. Because your kids will be all right. Your kids are going to be okay. You can be an okay parent, and your kids will be fine. So
especially if there's two parents, then
Oh yes, yes. I mean, and again, that's an opportunity. That's a privilege that I had. We had 2 engaged parents, right? Like they were around the whole time. So that was another reason to really enjoy my opportunity. Actually, I think there's a movie that's come out recently. I don't know if you know about this, with Emma Thompson in it. And it's a really interesting story about how she's lived her whole life, and she gave her life up. She gave her career up and everything to support her husband's career and be a full-time parent. And there's a quote in that which I just thought was so relevant to this. She said, in her character, she kind of said, about her children, she loves them. This is Emma Thompson in an interview. She said her character, she loves her children, of course, but their existence is not enough to make her feel as if she has lived a fulfilled life. And so she is left wondering at 60 about of all the other things she could have done, and all the other things she could have done had she known there was a life outside the set path of motherhood.
Oh, that's almost made me well up now.
Yes.
That's so powerful.
Yes. And so my philosophy of kids are a part of my life, not the only part. I'm so grateful I connected to that with courage.
Yeah. Can you send that to me, that quote? And I'll put that in the show notes as well, because that's incredible. And I think that knowing that there is something else, and how are you meant to know when nobody tells you? How are you meant to know that there's something outside of motherhood? How are you meant to know you're going to go through matrescence? How are you meant to know that this is completely normal. How are you meant to know that it's actually a gift, this
Yes,
challenging traumatic transformation, when
yes.
nobody tells you?
No, because I can tell you that matrescence, you'd have to go through 20 years of therapy to get the outcomes and change in you as a person.
Absolutely.
And as
Absolutely.
women, that's our secret weapon.
Yeah, it's
You
a
will
gift,
see
like
there's
you
a
said.
lot of women doing amazing things later in life now
Yeah,
because I believe that if you take that opportunity and use that, that's where the power is in it.
yeah,
Like you say, if you succumb to it, then you end up asking the questions that Emma Thompson's character asked.
yeah,
So I think put yourself 65 years forward and don't have that pressure, but know at the end when my kids leave you, because your children are only borrowed, let's
mm,
face it, they leave us. So when your children leave you, how do you want your life to look? And
yeah.
start slowly building a vision towards that and
And
making.
where can you slot back in? Where can you,
Yeah,
where can you slot back? Where you go, what are you keeping warm for
yeah.
later in life? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
be
true.
courageous. Be courageous with it, and don't worry it. Don't have that fear of failure. We've already won. We've got come through matrescence. We've got children. We are winning. We are warriors, and that mama warrior thing gets thrown around a bit as well. But warriors are equally vulnerable. It's
Yeah.
how you use your vulnerability, I think. So,
Oh,
yeah, there's a lot in
there's
it.
so much there, and it's so true. And I can't even, I think this is a perfect place to end it. I think that, we've said everything, and you're so right. And it is such a gift and such a, transformation, and we're warriors, and it's all underestimated. But if we say, no, not with me,
Yeah,
then it can be a huge thing.
and we have a duty to talk about matrescence. Did I get it right?
Matrescence, really.
we have we have a duty to talk about it because
Yes.
I didn't have a term to call it. I just said this trauma I went through.
Well, and people call it a breakdown or postnatal depression, or people say she's not coping
Yeah,
with motherhood or whatever. It's just all bullshit. It drives me crazy actually when this huge transformation is not recognized in women. And I'm so glad that we've had this conversation, that this transformation can lead to this inner fire and this inner power for the woman to come out the other end so, wonderful and magical and powerful, and do all these amazing things in the world, and we don't encourage her to do that
yeah.
as a
I mean,
society.
I think I know we've got to wrap this up, but I think your journey is testament to that as well. Like you took all your previous learning, all your professional history, you went through this journey which was like traumatic. I don't
Mm.
want to I don't want to frame up your experience,
No,
but
it
it
was.
went through like trauma to
Yeah.
come out here and to shut out the noise and just courageously pursue this, because you could have very easily gone back to where you were and did a bit of this and did a bit of that, but you've chosen to take this path, to serve others, to understand why you're here and what you need to do next.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that it's understanding that process you went through, and you took advantage of that privilege too. And I think that's
Yeah.
what we should all try and do, but then not take the pressure on, but just let it emerge.
Yeah. And speaking about courage, it's not like you need the courage to take that step. I still need courage daily to do what
Yeah,
I do. It's still scary,
totally.
it's still like, am I doing the right thing? Is this what I should be doing? So I think it's an ongoing courage which grows with experience.
Yeah, and not having knowing that failure is a part of growth. I think
Yeah.
don't fear. We have nothing to fear. We've got kids, right? We can get through anything. I
Well,
feel once I get through kids, you can get through anything.
we've been down there. We've been through, matrescence has kicked us to the ground. We've experienced postnatal depression. We've experienced mastitis. We've experienced it all. There's really not much worse that can come and get us.
Up vaginas. I mean, did anyone tell you they would be stitching up your vagina?
I
Like,
actually
oh
no.
my
Well, that's why
gosh.
I wrote a book about that. I'm going to drop you a copy actually in the next few days. You can
Oh,
read it about stitching up vaginas in there.
like,
This
is
is
that
actually
a thing?
it's funny because talking about sharing experience, like telling women about things that are going to happen. When I wrote this book after I had my first baby, because so much stuff happened to me when I
Yeah.
had him that nobody told me about, like the stitching up and all that sort of stuff. And so I interviewed 1,000 mothers from around the world, and I said, what do you want? What do you want people to know? What do you want women to know that are going into labor and childbirth in the first few weeks of motherhood that you wish you'd known before you had your baby? And I started a Facebook group, and I thought I'll just get some women and get their experiences. And I had to get 2 friends to help me manage the group because I had so many women wanting to share their stories. And I was like, this is crazy. Someone's going to write this down. So that's how that, I never intended to write a book.
And now you're on the next, no, well, I'm not sure what your next literary masterpiece involves, but there's definitely a story there where people can, where motherhood has created another journey, and where are those people sharing those stories? Because we need to know what's on the other side. What is on the other side?
Absolutely. And I love speaking to women like you who are so open and vulnerable, and you share, you know, your truth, because there is so much power in what you say. It makes women feel like they're not alone. It gives women hope. It, you know, it educates women. So thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely just fabulous, and maybe we can talk again.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I'd love to come and chat with some of your experts. No, it's a privilege to share and reflect, because now I've got teenagers and I'm so far on the other side that I don't often have the opportunity. So it's been amazing, actually.
Well, thank you. Thank you for going back there, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
And good luck to all you mamacitas out there.
Thanks, Deb. Oh, yay, you're still here. Thank you so much for tuning into the very first episode of Mama Unleashed, and for your interest in becoming a happier mum. I truly hope this episode has been informative and has inspired you to find the gifts in your matrescence journey. Now go and win yourself one of my $350 Amazon gift cards. Simply subscribe or follow, rate and review Mama Unleashed on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube at Dr. Jen Hacker Pearson. Then send me a screenshot of your follow, rating and review to podcast@drjen.com.au. and you're in the running. It's so simple. This competition closes on September 30 at 5 p.m. AEST. All the T's and C's are in the notes below and at drjen.com.au/podcast. Thank you so much for being here. See you next time.